Welcome to Speak Up International with Rita Burke and Elton Brown.
We call ourselves SpeakUP International. That is because we have the opportunity of having conversations with people from all over the world. Today is no exception. We are going to be chatting with Martha Clara Nakato, who is currently in Uganda. She is a health rights advocate and feminist leader. Martha Clara Nakato is the NGO African representative at the NGO Delegation to UNAIDS program, coordinating board PCB, the governing body of UNAIDS. Martha is openly living with HIV. She uses her lived experience to inform her advocacy and public work. There's so much more that I can say about our guest today, but as we say on SpeakUP International, we prefer for our guests to tell their own stories. And so I say to you, Martha Clara Nakato, welcome to SpeakUP International.
Thank you, Rita. It's a pleasure to be here and to interact with you and everyone listening in.
This subject is extremely important to Rita and I because this is something that our people tend not to want to talk about. They kind of like want to sweep this under the rug. But how did losing your mom to AIDS, a related illness, influence your outlook on health rights and stigma?
So to start, I am part of the 40 million people living with HIV globally. And that might seem like a number, but this is the first. And for me to also recognize that when you look back 40 years ago, very many people, just like my mother, didn't get the privilege of treatment or to even live the life that we are living right now. You know, the youth of my age, very beautiful with HIV. Some of us now have access to opportunities to go to school, to learn, and then show the new face of HIV, how it should be, and what that means to really live with HIV. So for me, reflecting on that journey of those who did not have access to the technology, like my mom, who did not have access to treatment, and they lost their lives to AIDS because they had no choice. And looking now at my life, I have the choice. And that is really thanks to the life-saving treatment, the antiretroviral therapy that we have now, that has really saved millions of lives now with many people on treatment, but also recognizing that there are inequalities that continue to limit many not to have access to this life-saving treatment. And I think that is something that we have to do collectively in our humanitarian work, but also in the heart of hearts of being human, for us to ensure that in the year 2025 and in the year to come, no one should have to die of AIDS or even HIV related illnesses.
That is a lot of content to unpack, but it's so relevant and it's so significant. I thank you. There's some words that you use, Martha, as you were presenting that fly out. You talked about 40 years and 14 million people living across the globe with AIDS related illnesses. You talked about lifespan and you talked about treatment. You also talked about access to treatment. Would you say that there is still a stigma associated with living with AIDS?
Yes, there is a lot of stigma associated to living with HIV. And I think we need to take a step back and go back to our history, because it is the history that shapes fear or even the misconceptions and the myths surrounding HIV. Many have said that if you look back in the years, and coming from the African culture, very many of us are from Africa, we still view HIV as a disease of promiscuity. People have also tagged that, oh, those, and I'm using those because quoting the languages of the people, or if you're promiscuous, if you're a sex worker, if you're gay, if you know you're not godly, you're not moral, then you're at verge of, getting infected with HIV. And that fear comes with it, that even for me as a child, a very innocent child who was born with HIV, I was not immoral in any way. I was innocent in all ways of purity, but there I was. So because of that stigma surrounding it, we're still seeing very many people not opening up to go to treatment. And I think the numbers are speaking to us. If you're to reflect, just last year, we've had over 30,000 people dying of AIDS-related illnesses. And this is not because we would mention things with access to, the prevention options. But I think the real fear and the real challenge lies in what Rita, you just said, the stigma. It is the stigma, it's the discrimination that still excludes very many from the point of care, but also the understanding that we, the people who are supposed to provide services at the health center or even at the community facilities, we have unchecked biases, and those inform our values. A health worker would say, oh, I'm not open to serving services to a gay man. I am not open to give services to a sex worker. And they will highlight all these things. And, it goes back to the question of what is your duty and responsibility as a health worker? And I think for me, it just goes back to service before anything. So it is again a collective call to everyone in the world that 40 years of this response, and the response is still here. And that is clearly because we have not done enough to fight the misconceptions, to fight the myths surrounding HIV, especially the new face of HIV right now, and also holding the line to fight the stigma and discrimination. I usually tell people that our religion or our culture should be one of love. We should be able to see people for who we are beyond our differences. And I'm one person who still wholly believes that HIV should not be the red line for people not to coexist effectively. Yet, we have the science, we have the technology. It has shown that we can live coherently together. But again, we cannot develop if we are living very many people together because of these inequalities. And these are things that we need to do collectively in our humanitarian way, but also in our human ways, to hold space for each other and really support everyone.
The key word that stuck with me was the word responsibility. And I think that the responsibility, it doesn't just rest on the shoulders of one person. I think as human beings, I think the responsibility rests on all of us. The responsibility may be different for per individual, where they live, their family. There's all these things that determines who's responsible for what. But I do believe that that responsibility means that everyone has to take their fair share and help other individuals so that they can also reach their dreams, because it's no longer a death sentence. If that was the case, I think we wouldn't use the words chronic illness so much. If it wasn't something we were able to, I don't want to say master, but at least we were able to push it back to the point where individuals are no longer stuck or that they can't move on. So what guidance do you have for young people hoping to influence public policy?
Wow, interesting one. And I'm going to really personalize this because the numbers are showing us that the future is young. If you look at the current population of young people globally, over 8 billion and above, and especially if you look at the African region where I come from, our strength lies in the power of the youth. They own the hugest percentage. They are the majority. And that means that for us to progress in every part of the world, the youth have to be part of that agenda. But then it also means that there is no way we can progress. There is no way we can have more young people, more youths involved in this kind of work of health policy, or even involved in leadership if we do not be intentional in creating spaces for the young people to nurture their talents, to nurture their skills, and more than anything, to lead with authenticity, to lead with truth, and to always do the right things, even when it's unpopular, which of course I know that it's usually hard. So for the very many young people are out there who really are eager to create change, who are eager to be the new force of energy, I think you have to be driven by the conviction of what is right and what also drives your purpose. And if your purpose is in health policy, which I personally I am very passionate about, it then means you have to go out of your way and explore, be grounded to read, research, understand, be in touch with the current trends of what is happening around the global health sector or even around the HIV response, if that is also an area you're really interested about. And the reason why I say this is because when you have access to information, when you're able to explore avenues of generating knowledge, there is a way it changes the way you think and also the way you relate with people. And I think that is also one thing that is really missing out in the kind of the work that we do, that we usually want to approach challenges as, statistics, as documents. Yet if we approach them from the point of, Rita said something earlier, of that human touch, how are you able to speak to the heart, to the soul? How are you able to really connect more with the people, And to all the young people who are really listening in, it's all about connecting more with the people and having the conviction to drive your purpose and to really believe in it, because that is what will drive you. For me, that is what has driven me ever since the age of 15 when I began doing this work, because I knew that if no one says something, if no one shows people the new face of HIV, if no one goes their way to do that, there is no one else who will create change than me. So to all the young people here who are also listening in, is to know that you are the change and you have to create that change if you want that change to happen.
You said, Martha, that we have not done much to break the misconception about HIV and what happens with people who are living with it. But when you say we, expand on that for me. Who do you see? You talked about the young people. I fully understand that. Who else? How? If I have unchecked biases about HIV and living with it, what would you tell me today that I must do in order to check my bias or to change my perception of a person who's experiencing this? Talk to me. You and I are meeting.
So Rita, when I say community and we, community is the we is the community. And for me to explicitly state that every time we say that HIV and we other it to specific communities, to say those people, their problem, not our problem, we then diminish the broader community. So HIV is a community issue. Everyone, be it the activists, the advocates, the young people, the older persons, be it the policymakers, be it the priests, everyone is part of that community. And it is our collective responsibility to ensure that we're speaking truth about HIV and we are spreading love. Because if our information is not packed with love, is not packed with truth, then there is no way we will close this tap. Just last year, if you look at the statistics of last year from UNAIDS, we had about 1.3 new HIV infections over, and that says a lot of 40 years. Why are people still getting infected? And it means there is a lot that we've not done. So the regions differ, but I think it comes back to the language of love. We've not talked love to ourselves, because love would then mean more tolerance for even the people we want to perceive as promiscuous, for even the people we want to assume that they are not morally right, but they are part of the community. So we are community. So also understanding that for us to move forward in a way that doesn't exclude people, doesn't leave anyone behind, but everyone is part of this conversation. We have to create a platform where we preach more love to tolerate, more love to understand our biases and what drives our biases, but also more love to be open to unlearning, relearning, and learning. Because one who doesn't learn will remain ignorant for the rest of their lives. But we also need more love to fight ignorance, because it is the ignorance that allows us to be intentional in excluding people in the systems, in a more systemic exclusion. We've seen more laws and policies criminalizing people living with HIV. We've seen more laws around the globe criminalizing sex workers, criminalizing gay men, criminalizing the LGBTI community. And we know that all these groups are at higher risk of HIV. But we've also seen more laws that are criminalizing the age of consent for young people, for the adolescents, and even us shying away to say, oh, at 15, at 14, our children are not having sex. But technology is exposing our children. Parents are no longer intentional to parent. So all these are conversations that interconnect, they interplay in a number of ways. But I just want to end by saying it is love that would lead us to a path. Because love would then mean more openness to even share the technology of the life-saving vaccines, the HIV prevention vaccines. And we see that very many low and middle income countries are still grappling with, just access these basic vaccines. But we've also seen challenges around a treatment optimization, effective treatments across the globe. So it's all about love. And I think for me, I like what Elton keeps on saying all the time. And I want to believe that it really connects with the values that I hold dear is, if I believe in humanity, then we know that if one life is saved, we save all. If one person is happy and fulfilled, we are all fulfilled. So it comes back to love, because love allows us to hold space for each other. It allows us to support and to be intentional, not to exclude or leave anyone behind.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I also think that there's another emotion that happens to come into play, and that's fear. The fear of, okay, I'm sitting next to somebody who happens to be HIV positive. Oh my God, I just felt their breath on my face. Oh no, does that mean I'm going to get it? Or I don't want to sit next to this person for whatever reason. And my question is, okay, one, yes, love is extremely important, because I think that is the glue that holds this whole entire advocacy together in order to help people get the drugs that they're needing, finding avenues to talk about the illness, also to be able to have the means to stay up with the latest and greatest drugs. I know I was doing a little research before we met, before we talked, and I know that there is another drug that's coming down the pike that it will eliminate. Some people are taking, 2 or 3 pills for
Mm-hmm.
the thing. This one is going to, eliminate a lot of them, and maybe you only have to take now 1 pill as opposed to 3 pills in order to maintain your health status as a person living with HIV. What is the biggest misconception have you encountered about young people living with HIV?
Wow. So the biggest misconception I have ever experienced in my life at the age of 14, when I just discovered that I was living with HIV, was when someone said that I will not survive beyond my 18th birthday. Like anyone with HIV dies. So that has been about 10, 15 years now, and I am still alive. And one thing that I can say about fear that you mentioned, Elton, now that I know, I didn't know then. I was very naive and I believed in all the lies. I believed in all the fear that people projected at me. But now I know better. Is the understanding that fear thrives in misinformation. Fear thrives in misinformation. And for me, I kept on asking, okay, so who spreads the misinformation? It is the people. We. We don't want to know the truth. We don't want to unlearn. And we are not open to learning. And as that, we hold on to our misinformation. And I can tell you that when I was 14, throughout school, throughout the community, the fear that I had was not about living with HIV. It was about how other people would see me and the judgment that I was already creating at 14. For someone as old as 40 to just say, oh, you've slept your way as a kid and you're gonna die. Telling a 14-year-old, now I know better. And that is why I am intentional to fight misinformation, because I have learned that this is what creates fear. This is what kills people. And also for me to say that along my journey from 14 to now 29, everyone I've interacted with and opened about my HIV status, be it the men, be it the women, be it even my sexual partners, many, the first thing they would tell me is, oh my God, you lie. You can't be this beautiful and you're living with HIV. And you know what I always tell them? This is the power of treatment. So I say this with utmost confidence because I know it is fear that allows people to still live with that misinformation and to spread it. Yet at the same time, I hold on to the hope that misinformation is something that we can fight. And across the years through my work, I've also been intentional to really empower other young people living with HIV to break free and live freely with it. I remember in 2016 when I engaged in a pageant for young people living with HIV and how it opened up spaces for me to really get to the grassroots community, to meet more young women, and for us to just have a sister club, a space where we can come together, share our stories and healing. And this is something that we are seeing across the world. So for me to still again re-emphasize, HIV has changed its face. For people living with HIV now, like me, we are no longer living in fear. So for anyone listening in and you're living with HIV, you've just been infected, you're figuring out, where will I go until right now? Please know that you have a family. We are over 40 million people across the globe. So you have a family and you're loved. If no one loves you, please know that you're loved, you're worthy, and you are enough. And HIV should not be the end of you. It's just the new chapter that you can create with a lot of excitement, but it will again come back to you. It's a choice that you have to make, the choice to live or the choice to give up. And I'm only hoping that you take the choice to live, because life is so beautiful if you just allow yourself to embrace it and to enjoy it.
Wow. So on SpeakUP International, we seek to inform, to inspire, and to educate. And what I'm hearing you say, Martha Clara Nakato, is that education is paramount, it's critical, and perhaps it should start at an early age to help people to begin to process their fear and their thoughts and their perceptions about the whole picture or idea or concept of HIV. You mentioned that you found out that you were a person living with AIDS at age 14. Am I correct?
Yeah.
What did that feel like? Talk to us about what did that feel like? What did it sound like? Talk to us about that experience.
Wow, wow, wow. For 15 years ago. So the way I found out about my HIV status was just abrupt. My twin brother at the facility, and boom, boom, boom. So there were a lot of questions for me at that time. And I remember one of the biggest questions that I had at the point when the health worker told me that you have HIV. And I'm like, from where and how? There is no one in my family that I know has HIV. So where is this coming from? And how comes my twin brother is negative and how comes I'm positive? So these are questions I lived with for the longest time. And I remember I didn't have answers. And I think for me, that is where, that's the biggest grief, the pain, the turmoil that I really, really lived with. So it was just quite unfortunate that my father at the time had not opened up about our family history. And I think later on, when I made around 17 years and with all the challenges that I was going through, I later got to learn that my mom had passed on because of AIDS, and I was just 5 years. And my dad had raised us as a single father for all these years. So it is then that he literally opened up and he told me that you may have contracted HIV from mom. And also for you to know that I am personally living with HIV. It is also unfortunate that I lost my dad in 2018 to cancer. May all their souls rest in peace. But the greatest gift that my father gave me 3 years later on was knowing my history and understanding that regardless of what happened, regardless of the fact that I was born with HIV, is I need to live life. And he always reminded me that this is your life to live. So you make a choice. And these are words that I keep hearing all the time. So I understand that it is hard for anyone out there. It is harder, 10 times harder for even a young person, an adolescent of my age of 14, just finding out now and what that means. But the thing that kept me going over those years, regardless of the questions that I had, was the hope. And I remember the first doctor that I met in my life who really, really changed my life beyond the ones that I had earlier met, because many of them would just talk at me, tell me what to do, like tell you this is what you have to do. Yet I just needed someone to hold space for me and listen, just listen to all my fears, listen to me say out everything. And I remember when I got that chance to find this amazing human being, he told me two words that I will never forget. He told me, most things people worry about never happen. So everything that is in your head, you will die, you will not have a life, you will not be anything important. This is just your brain playing you out. This is just fear playing you out. And he told me, you're gonna thrive and you're gonna be a big thing. I carry those words with me every day. And I share this to the listeners to know that it only takes one person to see you and to tell you that you are enough and you will thrive. So if no one has told anyone those words, like no one has affirmed you, no one has told you that you're worthy regardless of your HIV status, you're loved and you're wanted, let me be that first person to tell you that you belong and you're worthy of everything beautiful. But you have to live and let hope guide you along this journey of life.
I'm so happy that you were able to find a doctor that gave you more than a prescription. I could see that being very cold. You go in and you're like, I need help. And before you can even, you just give them a one or two sentences and they're off, they're giving you a prescription and they've already moved you out of the way for the next patient. And you're sitting there going, but I have so much left in my cup that I need to pour out. And you didn't give me the chance to do that. And so I can see how that in itself would be demoralizing. How do you keep marginalized people, Africans, other Black and brown people? How do you keep them in the center of the conversation? How do you not allow them to be swept over to the left or to the right? It really doesn't matter which side, but they're swept away in order to, because people don't want to deal with that, or for whatever the reason. So how do you keep marginalized voices at the center of the conversation where you don't allow people to do that?
So I will highlight part of the work that we do as the NGO delegation to the UNAIDS Program Coordinating Board.
Excellent.
And it's about having the realities of all people across the globe, all people living with HIV and all people at the risk of HIV, including the key and the vulnerable populations. And for us, is to ensure that as a delegation, every voice and every reality of a person is brought to that table, because that is where decisions regarding their lives, regarding their futures are made. That is the tables where countries commit to the health and well-being of their different, for the people generally. And one of the things that we do is to clearly consult more with the people across the different networks of people living with HIV, across the different resourceful persons that we have, and also the interactive ways of engagement on Twitter, on Facebook, and also on emails, to really ensure that we are having diverse voices. And for me to share that we are a delegation of 10 across the 5 different regions of Africa, Latin America, Europe, USA, and then we have the Latin and the Caribbean, and then Asia and the Pacific. And we work collectively together to ensure that the voices of everyone at the grassroots level is brought to the decision-making table. And also for me to share that this is not a role that we just do as we, the representatives, but we have a lot of support from the different regional networks of people living with HIV, from the different women youth networks that we collectively get to consult with. We share information, we interact together, and we curate solutions of then how do we move ahead in the HIV response. And one of the things that we are learning away, it's more of like a ripple effect. So we do it at the board level, but then all of us come from different countries. So it also means that our efforts from the board will trickle down to the different countries, but more than anything to the different regions, because that is what we represent as a delegation. And also the commitment to do that, to know that the work that we do is for the people. And for us, the people is the community of people living with HIV, communities of people affected or at risk of HIV. And that is what we basically do at the NGO delegation.
I can only respond to everything you're sharing with us today, Martha Clara, with wow. I must admit that I didn't realize that HIV was still such a huge world issue. My ignorance. So thanks for opening that can and sharing that with our listeners. Something you said, and many of the things you said are certainly resonating with me and are piquing my interest. A few weeks ago, I was at a workshop, and the workshop presenter singled me out and said that I said to him many years ago, there's something in you, you need to move forward. And I don't remember saying that to him. And here, many years later, he's saying to me that I was the person that lit that spark and encouraged him. And you said it only takes one person to tell you that you belong. And as you said that, that's what I was being reminded of. I don't remember how he said anything to this person who said at a big conference, you, Rita, is the person who said, go for it. So yes, it's critical. I concur with what you're saying. It's absolutely important for us to at least to find something to tell somebody about themselves that is going to encourage them. And then you said, most things people worry about never happen. So true, so true. But you know, it doesn't matter how tough, how strong, how educated, how credentialed you are. Sometimes you need someone in your corner to remind you of that. So thanks for that reminder. But my next question, I was going to ask you if who or what is responsible for the person you are today, but I'm not going to ask you that question anymore because you told us about a person who encouraged you and who you found. So I'm leaving that question for now. Maybe there are lots of other people who you could name. But I want to know what in your life, who in your life has helped you to become such a forceful, tenacious person about this particular world issue?
Wow, it's a deep question. For me, that person, even when she's not here, it is my late mother, Beatrice. It has always been her. And every time I look at her photo, I'm like, Mom, you're not here. Like, I wish you're here. But also the fight that I carry with me, the fire, the fire, is the understanding that she did not have a choice. Just like very many people in the world, we don't have choices because of the inequalities, the injustices. We can mention it. And I look at this woman and I'm like, if no one could fight for you, then I am going to fight for you. But I also say something usually to myself that if you died of AIDS and you did not have a choice, then I'll make sure no one around me has to die of AIDS. And more than anything, no young woman around me has to give birth to a child living with HIV, if they are living with HIV. And for me, this is what drives the work that I do. So it is her. She really gives me the strength. This is the person. Yeah.
I understand the loss of a mother. I lost my mom as well. She had hypertension, she had heart problems, and she left. And so I know how that feels. I truly get that. And I'm so sorry for your loss. But today we talked about hope and responsibility. And most importantly, we talked about freedom, the freedom to be able to find out information about this disease, the freedom to make a decision whether or not you're going to take on that regimen in order to live a normal life, to meet your challenges and your dreams with much passion. So we thank you so much for your conversation, the very honest communication, which we really appreciate. I'm sure our audience will appreciate the information that they've received, which is one, don't be afraid. Two, find the community. Don't allow yourself to not talk to your doctor, or in that matter, make sure that you find the right doctor that's going to help you not only mentally, but also physically. Thank you so much. Rita, is there something that you would like to add to that?
Yeah.
You said it all, Elton. I certainly appreciate what you said. I need to say to Martha Clara that thanks for educating me. Thanks for enlightening me. Thanks for reminding me that there's such a thing as HIV, and there are lots of people throughout the world that are still managing, struggling, being challenged with it. Thanks for reminding me about the myth and the misconceptions. And I feel certain that after this conversation today, this woman, Rita, will never be the same concerning her views about HIV and people living with HIV. I know that for a fact. I was exposed to it way, way back as a healthcare worker when it first started. I was telling Elton, but things have changed radically since then. But I haven't kept courage. So I thank you. I thank you. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure, believe me. Thank you for tuning in to Speak Up International. If you wish to contact our guest, Ms. Martha Clara Nakato, please be prepared to submit your name, your email address, and the reason why you wish to contact Ms. Nakato at linkedin.com. Ms. Nakato has other social media accounts you can use to contact her that will be listed in the description section on Spotify and other social media platforms. Your voice has the power to inspire, influence, and ignite change. We'd love to hear your story. We invite you to connect to us by sending your name, your company or organization name, the valuable service you offer to your community, and your email address to info@speakuppodcast.ca. You can also find our new video podcast channel at SpeakUP Podcast Video. Our logo features a woman with her finger pointing up, mouth open, speaking up. You can find our audio podcast at www.speakuppodcast.ca. Our logo features a woman with her finger pointing up, mouth open, speaking up. As soon as the website passes inspection, you will be able to gain access to the audio and video versions of each podcast using the following link, www.speakuppodcast.ca. As a member of our Patreon group, you will gain access to a wide range of exciting benefits. We're working on providing you with early access to new episodes and the opportunity to suggest topics or guests for future episodes. Your contribution of $2 or $5 monthly will not only help sustain the continuity of the podcast, but also allow us to enhance the overall listening experience for all of our dedicated followers. Help us help you. www.patreon.com/international. Don't miss our next episode. Join us again on SpeakUp International, where we aim to inspire, to inform, educate, and entertain you.